Hello again, friends. Today I want to have a little discussion about three projects that I think are critical to Canada's development, not only developing our relations on the international community, but developments that can allow for us to actually maximize our potential domestically and on economic levels, social levels, levels of innovation, and move us forward in a way that can actually put Canada in a position where we are global leaders in many aspects of global affairs and society. And the three projects I want to discuss all have to do with our transportation infrastructure. So this entire discussion will be about development of transportation infrastructure in Canada that can allow us to maximize our potential and become the global leaders that we are capable of being. And the first project I want to discuss is I'm going to start in the far north and work my way down. And the first thing I think we need to do to help establish Canada and give it a prominent role in the world again is the opening up and usage of the Northwest Passage. Now, for those of you that don't know what the Northwest Passage is, if we look on the map, the Northwest Passage is this area here. There's many routes you can take through it, but it basically involves going through these paths here to allow people, particularly goods from Asia, to get to Europe in a way that saves a lot of time. And there's some issues about this. Like right now, people want this area to be declared international waters. And I actually agree with Vladimir Putin, who said Canada should do this, is say, no way, this body of water here is all within Canadian water, within Canadian borders. If anything goes wrong in that area during shipping and that, it's going to be Canada that's fully responsible for the cleanup. It's going to be Canada that is fully responsible for all the security around here. Therefore, it needs to be Canada that is responsible for any profits and anything that goes through there. If we're going to hold the expenses for it, we ought to hold the tariffs and the taxation on it, just like Russia did with their northeastern passage up and along this way here. However, we have the advantage because the Northwest Passage is much shorter, and we can say what we want about how our national reputation has deteriorated. I would still suggest that the vast majority of nations would rather deal with Canada as a partner in shipping than Russia. And another reason we can charge for it, if we claim this area as Canadian sovereign waters, is because the alternative route to go from Russia to Europe or Asia to Africa, basically anywhere from the Far East to anywhere in Europe or Africa, the other option, instead of just going from Asia over here up through here then bang into Europe, they are paying tariffs and paying fees to go all the way down through Panama and then go back up. We can charge because even if we charge, we are still saving countries and corporations millions of dollars when you account for saved travel time, saved fuel costs, saved labor costs, saved wear and tear on vehicles. And if we do that, we can create money for people in the northern areas here. But in order to do that, we need to build infrastructure up there. I don't know where, but we are going to need to establish at least one naval base up here to not only provide security, but to give people using the Northwest Passage an added sense of security. And if we have increased traffic up there, that is a long distance to travel. We are going to need places where ships can gas up and where ships can stop. And we also, we are going to open up the Northwest Passage, we want to make it available for domestic usage. So we are going to need to place ports in many of the communities here. And I have some ideas on what ones, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. However, what I will do, the Northwest Passage, I will go into another thing the Northwest Passage allows us to do. If we look at the Canadian government minerals mapping, we see that there are no developments going on up here, or very few, and that which are typically precious metals and very valuable commodities. And part of that is because there's no efficient way of getting goods out to market from these places, and there's no efficient way of transporting these goods anywhere, whether it's through domestic companies sending it to domestic companies, or I don't like this, but through foreign companies trying to get the products back to their homeland. If they don't have the necessary port buildups, they cannot extract any of the materials that are from here. And if we put ports up here, we can allow for the development of areas in the Mackenzie Basin, all along the Mackenzie River here, and you can see there are some areas that are being developed, but we can further that by providing ports there. We can further the development of the Baker Lake area and the Thalon drainage basin, and we can also take advantage of the Coppermine Basin and the Burnside Basin. That's all in Nunavut and in Quebec. If we put ports up here, we can actually take advantage of the Coxsackie River, the Leaf River, the Whale River, and the Arno River, as well as developing more along where there are currently roads up there in the Radisson area, and allow for all these areas here to have easy access to ports where if they decide to market their goods to Asia, they do not have to go all the way around Panama to get there. They can just load up in the James Bay area or up here and then just go right round to Asia again. And another thing it does in terms of clean energy, if we provide ports up here, we can make it more cost effective to get the materials that we need to build the dams and create the infrastructure up here to create energy for the communities up here. And that will also provide jobs, because this map here is showing these circles here are tidal energy potential. And as you can see in the undeveloped northern areas of Quebec, and particularly the Hudson James Bay area in Nunavut, there is a substantial amount of tidal resource potential going on there. But they cannot take advantage of it because it it's not cost effective because there is no cost effective methods of getting materials up there. And the same can be said about using dams to create hydroelectricity in the north. There's no effective way to get materials up there. And granted, I also understand that the permafrost conditions make building more difficult. However, it is still possible to take advantage of these areas and to give people cheap electricity up there and reduce the cost of goods. If we improve the amount of ports that are up there, we can increase the amount of goods that come in, which can allow us to build proper storage facilities up there and reduce the cost of living for everyone in the far north. And as I mentioned before, if we charge people, other countries and corporations money for using this, we can look at the profits that Panama has made from the Panama Canal. That, although we wouldn't take all that money, Panama is still the prime choice for some countries shipping goods other places, but in the northern hemisphere, this would be the number one choice. And if we can collect all the money from that and use that money to continue to develop the northern area, a project like that in the long run will more than pay for itself. The same way the construction of the Welland Canal and the St. Lawrence River system paid for itself paid for more than its construction over the years. These are long-term projects that bring in money in the long term. And the second one I want to discuss is a second Trans-Canada Highway. Because if we look at the road development, we see that we have no main roads north of Edmonton. In fact, in Ontario, you can zoom in, there's only one road that goes up to Armstrong and then a dirt road that goes up to Pickle Lake up here. And a few very minor roads that lead into ice roads all through northern Ontario. And even northern Ontario just has a tremendous lack of roads. Even Quebec, as you can see here, has roads going up the east side of James Bay as far north as Radisson. Yet in Ontario, we have nothing major any further north than Red Lake. And that's because they discovered a wealth of resources there that was profitable enough to build a road and exploit. However, what we can do to prepare for the future, zoom out here, what I would propose to do is we take a look at the permafrost map of Canada. The yellow and orange areas are areas where permafrost is not a major enough problem to prevent building. And as we all know, or maybe we don't know, this could be news for you, but these lines of permafrost are going further and further north all the time. As the northern regions of the world warm up, the permafrost moves up with it. And so pretty soon, within decades, it is possible that even if we started this project, the second Trans-Canada today, by the time we got it built, it is quite possible that especially these yellow areas just have no permafrost. But what I would propose is road extensions, a second Trans-Canada route, extend. There's a road that currently goes down here, and build a new road from Labrador City right down here to the southern tip of James Bay on the Quebec side. Wrap it around here from Moosonee. Head it up to a somewhere on the south side of Fort Albany, and then run the Trans-Canada across northern Ontario through many of the communities here and keep it going right over the north side of Lake Winnipeg, because there's nothing connecting the north side of Lake Winnipeg to anything. There's no connection here east to west. The only east-west connection in this area is between Winnipeg, Thunder Bay, up to Nipigon and Hearst. And anything that gets shipped out of this area is completely inefficient. It's completely inefficient to put any sort of resource extraction development there, because the shipping is just insane. But we lead it up, and then we take it north up through towards Fort McMurray, because there are many developments taking place in this area in terms of resource development that have no east-west link until, like I said, they get well south into the developed area. And then link it from Fort Mac up to Fort Vermilion, and then run it to a place called Rainbow Lake about here, and then run that up to Fort Nelson. I understand that this area here in the green is probably going to be difficult building, but again, if we're gonna build it all the way across here, and we're not gonna stop there. Not when you'd have to go down and then up around there again for effective shipping. We may as well just carry it straight across, and that would allow us to connect to the road going from Fort Nelson up into Whitehorse and Dawson City. And when we look at the minerals and resource mapping here, that road basically attaches all these iron mines, goes through all these new developments, runs around the bay, opens up this whole area here for further development, and makes it more profitable for people to come in and set up more resources and resource extraction, mining, forestry. All that stuff can be done up there if we just provide a road. And then that goes through all these new developments right up into Fort Mac, and then connects this area here with a more efficient way of getting goods across Canada. And also what this does is our northern communities, they have much in common with each other in terms of economics, and a lot in common with each other in culture. Yet because there is no east-west road connecting the northern parts of Canada the way there is east-west roads connecting southern parts from down there and then around there, all the culture, all the society in the north has a much more difficult time in accessing each other in a face-to-face manner. By providing east-west connections to the north with a road, it allows the people of the north greater connectivity with each other, and allows better potential for them to develop their society on a cultural level and develop more cohesion and unity among the northern population. And that is much needed, as we can clearly see with this area here. I focus on Northern Ontario because Northern Ontario is by far the worst area for road development in the country. We are the worst. We're relying on ice roads that we don't need to, because we don't have the political will to make any sort of investment in that area of Northern Ontario. We would just assume allow the communities to die, it seems, and I don't think that's right. They need a road, and this is a federal thing because it connects everything federally and allows for better development of federal resources, of the resources of our country, and it allows for the proper dispersal of those resources, which can give us economic effects, positive economic effects in areas of the country that haven't seen any positive economic effects since the origination of the Hudson Bay Company. And yes, there are areas of Canada that have not seen any positive money flow since that time. And it's disgusting that we can say that, and we need to put a stop to that. And a second Northern Trans-Canada would do that. Also, what it would do, in addition to reducing shipping times, if we reduce shipping times, we're reducing the amount of times that big vehicles are on the road. That greatly reduces our emissions. And that is good for the environment, and it's also good for the pocketbooks to people, because gas and fuel cost money, and if all our shipping companies can save money on their fuel and their shipping costs, then that produces a reduced cost to us. And another reason we want this east-west link is, as I mentioned before, this isn't even an if, when we open up this Northwest Passage, if we can have a major east-west route that is connected somehow to the Northwest Passage, such as this would be at the south end of James Bay, then that gives this whole area here, and Ontario, Quebec, Eastern Canada, all this area here, much easier access to the Asian markets. So we can develop ports up here, and I can really envision this being a very productive area in the future, the James Bay area. And also, when we look at clean energy, we see we have a tremendous amount of river current energy potential in Northern Ontario. Again, I'm focusing on Northern Ontario because there's literally nothing there. And if we can gain the hydro resource potential of the Albany Basin, the Attawapiskat Basin, the Winnis Basin, and the Severn Basin, then we gain a tremendous amount of energy potential for our northern communities to use. And there are communities in the north that do not have proper electrical grids or anything, and that can allow, again, for further development. If you have transportation access and if you have energy in an area, that's what allows you to develop. There are many areas along this Northern Trans-Canada that have little to none of either of them. We can fix that, and we can make our Northland in time just as accessible as Southern Canada is, and we can create the boom in Northern Canada the same way we did when we created the boom in Southern Canada with the Transnational Railway and the original Trans-Canada Highway. If we just put our minds to work and put in the energy and establish the will to do it. We have tremendous potential if we put in a second Trans-Canada. And the third project and final project I want to talk about today is moving further south, and what I believe needs to be done there is we take our top 25 cities, the farthest one north being Prince George, and our land-based cities, that's not including St. John's, Newfoundland, or anywhere on Prince Edward Island, but we connect our major cities with high-speed light rail. And basically what that would entail is from Halifax through to Moncton, along the 401 route, down to Windsor, around here, connect from Montreal, Ottawa, Sudbury, stop in Thunder Bay, basically the same route as the Trans-Canada A and B, from Winnipeg on through to Vancouver, and also up to Prince George, with connections in between Regina and Saskatoon and Edmonton and Calgary. This has the potential to reduce the amount of air traffic that we have, therefore reducing emissions, and also reduces the inconvenience of domestic air travel. If anyone's flown, you understand the inconvenience behind it. It would be much more convenient to just hop on a train, throw your gear on, and go across the country, just like a bus or just like CN, only much, much faster. And what that can do, that can greatly increase the amount of distance people can commute. And it gives people more of an ability to live rurally or live small town and work in cities. It also can expand people's travel distance for when they want to go away on weekends and that. For example, someone from my neck of the woods in Morrisburg, this area here just south of Ottawa, you can travel 3 hours to get to Toronto, 3-4 hours to get to Toronto and spend a weekend there. If we hook all of this up with high-speed light rail, it is possible that if people wanted to, they could explore Northern Ontario and hook up with Sudbury in the same travel time. They could go to Quebec City and explain a completely, or explore a completely different culture down there. We can literally expand our travel area by up to 3 times, depending on the technology we use in the trains. And I understand, especially people in Ottawa, having a very negative view on rail transportation, but I think we could learn our lesson, and if this does get built, we do not let Lavalin anywhere near it. We don't even let them pick up a friggin' pencil. If we have to do it right, this project is, every other project I would want to see done by Canadian engineering firms and that, but this one, I think Canada has proven time and time again, we don't know railways. We don't know how to do it. Yet we have many trading partners in Europe and Asia alike, but I'm particularly thinking about the Swiss when it comes to rail transit, that it can be done right, and it can produce extreme benefits for the communities that it services. And another benefit that, like, not even looking at the saving emissions, and if we power it by hydroelectricity, and if we do that, that can also increase the demand for hydroelectrical facilities to be built in the north, because all these projects will require heavy energy consumption from time to time. But the benefit I was going to get at, if we have all our major cities, which are all our cities that have universities, and pretty much all our research facilities are located along that path somewhere that I mentioned, we can greatly increase the amount that we can have universities and our centers of innovation working with each other face to face, not via the internet. If we implement high-speed rail and it runs through Sudbury and North Bay, we can have researchers from Laurentian and Nipissing working in coordination in ways that they never have been able to before. And the same can be said about universities like Ottawa, Montreal, facilities in Toronto and Montreal can collaborate in ways that they never were able to before. They would be able to wake up early in the morning, hop on high-speed rail, meet at a research facility, and have an entire day of work done. They don't have to travel by car 4 hours and be completely inconvenienced by the process. And if we speed up innovation, that is good for the economy. Innovation, especially nowadays, is the driver of modern day economies. And anything we can do to increase the coordination of our research facilities and increase the amount of communication face to face between researchers, the better we are going to be as a nation, because the more innovation will be facilitated and we will be able to share that information and move forward in a much quicker way if we decide to do that. And it can also open up avenues for people to explore Canada. For example, right now granted, not the RVers and that, but if someone from Ontario wanted to go all the way out to Alberta to, say, see Banff National Park, which I know many people have, that is common. Banff is a beautiful place. That is a beautiful part of the country. They would typically either take the time and drive there, or if they wanted to spend all their time actually more of the time exploring the park, they would fly there, which would generally mean flying from either Ottawa or Toronto to Calgary and then heading off to Banff National Park from Calgary. But when that happens, aside from looking down at all the square wheat fields in the prairies and maybe possibly looking down from the plane on clouds, the person taking that trip does not really see any of Canada. They completely miss all the area in between Ottawa and Calgary. If we have light rail, not only can a person stop at one of the stops, get off, stretch a little bit, grab a bite to eat, and then get back on the next train heading that direction, what they can do, they actually get an opportunity to see the cities and the communities along the path. So these communities get visibility. So the person that would ordinarily fly from Ottawa all the way to Calgary misses out on all the communities in between. Now they would get an opportunity to at least see Thunder Bay, see Winnipeg, see Regina, see Medicine Hat and Swift Current and that. And then maybe they'd think, hey, that I'd like to visit there. And one thing I think is important for all Canadians to gain an understanding of is how vast Canada is. And you see that better from traveling on the road than you do, or on the ground better than you do from the air. It gives you a different perspective. And again, it saves on emissions, and not only that, the economic downfall that the air industry would suffer can be turned into better air travel and transportation for the areas of the country, and there are still lots of them that would be left out of the port development, the Trans-Canada development, and the light rail development, because we could then take a lot of the airplanes and a lot of the pilots in that and give them jobs running more efficient supply runs via airplane in the far north. that is an option that we could do to recoup the jobs lost that aren't picked up again in supplying labor to all the stops along the light rail path. Now, again, none of these projects could take place overnight. However, especially when you look at all three of those projects as a whole and don't look at them separately, those three projects, if done, will not only lead to the economic development to allow for further development of other projects, such as possibly an idea bantered about by the Conservatives and NDP prior to the last election, but building our own refineries and building our own other infrastructure. But if we don't have the means to transport anything more effectively than we do now, how effective is it building those other projects? We need to be able to connect Canada to the rest of the world and actually connect Canada to the rest of ourselves. And we need to focus on that first. If we can't do that, if we can't even be connected with ourselves, how can we expect to be taken seriously internationally and establish serious connections to the international world? And I have a strong feeling that that is one of the reasons that we did not get a seat on the UN Security Council, is because we can't even take care of ourselves. Like, you look at the countries that got outvoted by us, like Norway, they have northern development. They have their northerners connected. We don't. I understand that they have different geography and different issues to deal with, but I can also pretty much guarantee you that if the country of Norway had this many villages along a shoreline in a northern area, they would have more efficient ways of transporting goods to these people than we do. I guarantee that they would be taking better care of those people. And a seat on the Security Council implies that you are going to be there to take care of other people in the international community. Well, if we can't even take care of the people in our northern communities, it's a joke to even imply that we can take care of the international community's security. We can't even provide security to our own people in literally half the geographic area of our country. We need to do that first. And if we are able to build these infrastructure projects, we have the resources, we have the intelligent people that we can become not just a force on the international stage, but an absolute dominant force on the international stage. But we need to start using our money more effectively. These infrastructure projects are a very effective use of our money. And just think of all the money that we have wasted on a federal level buying fridges for multi-millionaire corporations. And one example that I'm thinking of, not even about the fridges and that, and I just want to end with this to put that into perspective. After all, if you're still watching this video, after all you've heard about the need for those infrastructure projects, I'm going to show you, and these are infrastructure projects that the feds aren't really paying any significant attention to. In fact, the nationwide light rail network, high-speed rail network, I don't believe that has even been mentioned anywhere well, not on a national level. It's been mentioned in Toronto that they want high-speed rail connecting Toronto, but it's never been mentioned on the national level. We are not mentioning those projects that produce national benefit, yet you know what infrastructure project the federal government is providing funding for? This is good. Okay, we're going to zoom in here. And there's a small town that I live in called Morrisburg. The federal government is not developing any of those useful projects, but they are contributing money to put a roundabout on the corner of County Road 2 and County Road 31. Now, can someone please explain to me what benefit the nation receives by having the nation's taxpayer money go towards improving a roundabout at the corner of County Road 2 and County Road 31? If the feds are not going to invest in infrastructure that improves the well-being of the entire nation, our federal government has no business contributing money to a roundabout at the corner of County Road 2 and County Road 31. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Does it make any sense to you? That's the question I'm leaving you with today. Thank you for listening.